So please charge as soon as possible when you're starting a business. Now, when it comes to cost structure, your company should be or could be one or the other. It could be a cost-driven company or it could be a value-driven company. What is the difference? If we're talking about a big corporation, normally like Walmart, Target, they are mostly cost-driven companies. Why? Because they have a supply chain and they know if they cut something out of their supply chain, they're gonna save millions of dollars. A famous example of this is American Airlines, I think, or Delta, or some airline, I don't know, that by them taking an olive out of their cocktails save like millions of dollars a year. And those are cost-driven companies. They're trying to cut cost all the time. The other companies are value-driven companies. These companies instead, they create value and they will charge more because the perception of the value they're creating is higher. So for value-driven companies, we have companies like Cisco, we have companies like Apple, we have companies like Uber. They're gonna charge a premium cost, but consumers are still willing to pay for this because there is a clear value proposition that people are willing to stand upon. So if you're starting a company, unless you have a lot of expertise in a certain area that you could be an effective cost-driven company, I would highly recommend to try to be a value-driven company. And the reason why you want to be a value-driven company mostly is because when you are starting a business, your company as a company is going to be very inefficient. You're gonna have barely any processes in place, and it's gonna take you a lot of effort to come up with the product because your company is just starting and everything is changing. So by default, you are not probably going to be a cost-driven company. So my recommendation is try to be a value-driven company at a bare minimum. Now, what are the characteristics of the cost structure? So on the cost, once you get into cost, you will notice that you can have either fixed cost like rent, or you can have variable cost like the cost of producing a unit of whatever you're trying to produce. So fixed costs, as your total costs are going to be the combination between fixed costs and your variable cost. There's not much to say about that, but you do need to think about what are your fixed costs and what are your variable costs, right? On the fixed cost, you're gonna have something like maybe the employees that you're gonna pay every month if you're not paying them any commission. You're gonna have the rent, you're gonna have the cable, you're gonna have just stuff that do not change every month. On the variable cost, you're probably going to have some supplies that you have to buy every month, or the cost of production of every unit, or electricity. All these things are variable, right? So you need to kind of put everything on the same page and say, okay, every month I'm going to spend this amount on fixed costs and this amount on variable costs, and that's going to be your total cost of the month. Now, the economies of scale, it's the concept, as I said before, when you become more efficient, right? So the more you do something, you become more efficient, and you get this thing called economies of scale. So economies of scale, that's all it is the more you produce, the less it costs you to make it. Either because you are using technology and you can scale and not have an overhead, or because your process becomes more efficient. So instead of producing 100 units at $1 each, you may produce 200 units at 50 cents each, and so now you're more efficient, and that's called economies of scale. The concept of economies of scope, it's all about you using the same network that you have to do something different. So if you already have a network where you are selling let's say pizzas, you already have let's say a distribution network where you're selling pizzas, right? People call you and you have cars on the street, and people can deliver pizzas efficiently through town. So you have this network of drivers that could do that. Economy of scope is, instead of you only selling pizzas with these drivers that are already doing that, maybe they can also sell sandwiches, right? You're using the same drivers, but now instead of only carrying pizzas, you can carry pizzas and sandwiches. So it's not gonna cost you any more to do the same, the different product, but you're kind of like using your already built workforce. So that's what economies of scope means. So keep this all in mind when you're talking about your cost structure and how it's going to look. You just want to know how much it's going to cost you to start this business, and how much you're going to need to make to have in cash until your business starts getting off the ground.